Hi everyone, James Egersdorff here, previewing game week 9 of the Fantasy Premier League. So it feels like it's been absolutely ages since game week 8, and if you had a bit of a meltdown in game week 8, kind of a bit like I did, I still got a green arrow, I still did okay, but I tell you what, it feels like it's been an absolute lifetime since we're able to get stuck in and do some FPL, so it's great to have the Premier League back this weekend, but we do only get another 4 weeks and then it's another international break, which is really frustrating, but hopefully we've got some plenty of green arrows and plenty of points to win between now and then. So usual format for the video this week, I'm going to review game week 8, I'm going to chat a bit about some of the matches and some of the players I'm looking at ahead of game week 9. Going to move on to left field options, going to talk about the FPL donut of the week, and we're going to talk about captain choices. So game week 8, I had a bit of a funny game week, and I think if you watch the last video I filmed it on the Thursday of the game week, and I put together what I thought was a really balanced and well thought out argument to avoid Harry Kane, and I was going to put my trust in Hazard as captain, and then for some mad reason I completely went against that, and at the very last minute decided to bring Harry Kane into my team, and we all know what happened next. A 1 point, absolutely hopeless move, and bearing in mind I'd taken a -4, I was really kicking myself, and I've been really harsh on myself. I think it's been really going through my mind quite a bit over the last couple of weeks. It's obviously been 2 weeks I've had to dwell on it. That was a really stupid decision on my part. It went against a number of things that I live by on FPL, which is minimalising points hits, sticking to the plan. It's really important you do that, and almost not overanalyzing things and not going against your gut instinct. So I was really guilty that week of probably coming up with the right answer in the video, so hopefully some of you followed that, and then sort of going back on it at the last second. And I've kind of looked at it, and I really don't think, and looking back to last season, it's a new thing in FPL. So I've played this game a long time, so I think this is my 12th or 13th season. And last season was the first time that they did the Friday night deadline. And looking back, it really doesn't suit my style of play at all. So I really like to gather all the information. I really like to get the info from the press conferences and have a good plan in my mind. And then usually if on a Friday night you've got kind of all that information floating around in your head, I'll sleep on it and then make the call on Saturday morning when you've got plenty of time between waking up and having to set your team to get the call right. And I think what happened on that Friday was I was in a real rush. I'm sure like most of you work, you've got a job to do. Sadly, I can't just do FPL for a job. And I finished work and I had some rushing around getting in from work, and I kind of had like half an hour left to digest all that team news stuff. And I was kind of sat there with Twitter in one hand and the newspaper in the other hand, and trying to work out some fixtures on a piece of paper with the other. I don't have 3 hands, by the way. And it was kind of like I could see the clock going 18:57, 18:58, 18:59, and it was one of those where your heart's racing and you're hovering on, do I do it? And I kind of did it, and as soon as the clock struck 7 o'clock, it was almost like I instantly knew. I was like, that was a mistake, and it was. So you reap what you sow. I've got Harry Kane, I don't have Aguero this week, and I've missed out on Hazard's captain haul from game week 8, so I need to kind of figure that out. The lesson, and I think like anything in life, you always need to learn from your mistakes. The lesson for me is Friday deadlines. I need to be really careful with them because they don't bode well, like I've said, to my playing style. And I do remember last season, if I tell you that one of the transfers I remember making on a Friday night was bringing in Julian Speroni, who I think was a 4 million Crystal Palace keeper, and I remember it kind of went really wrong and he lost his place in the team. I remember a similar thing, being sat there with like half an hour to go, scratching my brain what to do. It's a real reminder to just sometimes in FPL, just keep it simple. And actually, going back to that game week, if I'd have just gone on holiday for 2 weeks and got really drunk every night and not logged on my FPL team, I'd have probably been up on points. Then actually all that tinkering and all that planning you can do, sometimes it is too much, and I'd be sat here now with 2 free transfers. I'd still have Aguero, and I'd have a load of plans and options that I could make. So a real lesson. But as I say, not a complete disaster. So I got 66 points. I got 70, but I did the -4, so 66. Decent green arrow, up about 300k places. So I'm inside the top 650,000. So room for improvement. If I can hit a green arrow every week between now and the end of the season, then that's going to be a pretty good result. So we are where we are, and some lessons learned. Even for someone like me who's played a long time, you can still learn things and still make improvements. So game week 9 then. So on to game week 9. So I've looked at this, and before I sort of chat about the actual game week, I think there's something that maybe we've missed, certainly I've missed this season, and I only just realised it now, is that, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't remember there being that many international breaks. Maybe there is. We've had basically 4 games and a break, now we're going to have another 4 games and a break, and I kind of feel that that's interrupted the rhythm of the season, and it's meant that we're almost, what we're going to be, about a quarter of the way through, give or take, and we've kind of not got into that rhythm of knowing exactly which players are the real must-haves. I guess we'd probably all agree there's Hazard, but outside of that, I think there's debate for all the other players that you could say are real must-haves. We've got players like Kane, we've got players like Salah, who've not really hit that rhythm, and I don't think the international breaks have really helped them. It's not helped us as FPL managers get a real picture, and it's not helped us move from one week to the next, or even kind of 2 weeks to the next in terms of carrying a transfer and planning ahead, because you've always got that break not too far around the corner, which kind of means that that always brings problems. So problems such as anyone like me who's got Sadio Mane, or I'm sure like lots of you have got Mo Salah, left sweating on the fitness of those players. So I'm going to be it's Thursday now, I'm going to be waiting right until the last second to check that they're fit. As ever, I think the press conferences are really important. An interesting development for the Kane owners like myself is that the news that Dembele and Eriksen are both fit, and I've got a view that if and again this goes back to my stupidity in game week 8, that if Dembele plays, Spurs are suddenly a different team, and it really does impact Harry Kane. I think I might have talked about that in previous videos, but I think that if he plays and if Eriksen plays, suddenly I'm kind of thinking, maybe having Kane is not totally a disaster. I mean, the obvious switch is getting back Aguero and captaining him, and I'll come to that a bit later. But I do feel that there is probably a good argument here for anybody who is looking to maybe stabilise or get a few green arrows or build a bit of a platform. It's probably more relevant to those people who are in a position that they don't really want to be at the minute. So if you're doing really well and flying high, maybe you look at this a bit differently. But the way I'm going to look at it is just break the next 4 weeks down into almost like a mini season, and just try and hit kind of a green arrow every week as I can for the next 4 weeks, and ideally carry a transfer into that international break, and then I'll have almost like kind of a new start to the season. It'll be game week 13, and I'll have 2 free transfers to kind of hit that off again and get moving again. So I kind of feel that that's quite a good plan. Looking at the fixtures as well, I think this week that there looks to me to be quite a few opportunities for home wins. You're looking at Chelsea, and I know there's the Mourinho with the Newcastle thing, but I mean, it's got to be a pretty good chance Chelsea are going to get a decent positive result on their current form. It seems like Bournemouth, who are on form, and of course they're at home. Arsenal play at home. Everton got a good result in the last few game weeks, and of course they're at home. So it's looking to me that if you've got plenty of players with a home fixture, that's always a good advantage anyway. But I think the fixtures are quite favourable this week. Wolves are another one that are going well, and they've got a favourable home tie. So that's game week 9 kind of wrapped up. It's quite hard to actually sit and talk about it, given that there's been the 2-week break, because it's kind of almost like goes back to being a bit like speculation, because the form has we've had a 2-week break off, so it's hard to really get into under the skin and really analyse it and really nail it. But yeah, I definitely think the press conference stuff is as key, if not more important this week than any. So, left field options. We talk about every week. So we go defender, we go midfielder, and we go attacker. So there's some interesting names here that banded about and hit a bit of form. So I always pick a defender, and I backed them a couple of weeks ago, and they really let me down. But they did play pretty well at Old Trafford in the last game, although they got beat. They did well to go ahead. But I'm looking at Newcastle now. They've got the best fixtures out of anybody in the league. If you look at them on paper, they've got a great run for about the next 6 to 8 games. Rafa is the master at playing fairly negative football, and we've seen that this season. He's a master tactician. So you're looking at their defence. If you were going to capitalise on a Newcastle player at the minute, you'd pick a defender. They're all pretty cheap. You've got guys like Yedlin, Dummett, who I think is back from injury, and you've got people like Fernandez. They're all sort of 4.5, 4.4. I think the goalie, I'm not going to try and pronounce his name, annoyingly, is it Dubravka? He's 5 million. He's a bit expensive, I think, but he played brilliant against Man United and made some great saves. So I think if you wanted a left field bargain, maybe one of those guys would be an option. I mean, I know the Wolves people are a similar price, and you'd probably go for Wolves, but if you're maybe trying to get a differential, or perhaps you're on wild card, that could be an option. A cheap midfielder that looks great. He's got a couple of assists in the last 2 games. He looks to have nailed down his place in the team. Is Bernard for Everton. He looks like a real tricky attacking winger. Their fixtures are quite funny coming up. They've got a brilliant favourable home game, and then the next week they've got a really tough away game, and then a brilliant favourable home game and a really tough away game. So I've got Richarlison. I'll probably stick with him. This Bernard chap, I think he was 6 million originally, and he's dropped a little bit. He might be 5.8, 5.9. So again, an interesting differential. And then up front, I've gone for the clear one for me is if you're looking in that sort of 7 million price bracket. I've got Zaha, for example. I could probably do with moving on in the next few weeks. It's Mitrovic, so they're playing the likes of Cardiff. They've got Huddersfield. They've got some other decent games in the next 2 or 3 weeks. But it's his the guy who plays alongside him. I've talked about him before. Vieto. He's 5.5. He's got an assist last time round. He's playing every week. Likewise, if you need a midfielder, I think Schürrle could be quite good. If you can't quite afford Mitrovic, or you need a midfielder over a striker, I like Schürrle and I like this Vieto guy. Just given Fulham's fixtures. And logic suggests that if Mitrovic is going to get a whole bag full of goals, he needs somebody to supply the bullets. So hopefully these guys will continue to get some assists. So they're my 3 left field picks. For FPL Donut, there can only be one person. It's got to be Harry Kane. Kind of need to give myself, or go and get myself a donut and eat that this week for allowing myself to bring him in. But it's classic FPL. The FPL gods have not shone kindly on us there. You go and get Kane, don't you, in good faith against Cardiff. They'll get at least a goal, and he gets booked and gets 1 point. So that's the way it works sometimes. But sorry, Harry, we do love you, but you're FPL donut of the week. And then finally, captain. So I touched upon it a little earlier. Aguero looks the obvious one for me. So he's done nothing for 2 weeks other than sit and put his feet up, because he has been not on international duty. He's got a home tie. They're playing Burnley. I talked last video about how many goals City score. They've scored probably, I think they've scored the most, haven't they, out of everybody in the league. So he looks pretty nailed on if you have him. But then likewise, the Liverpool guys, they're attractive. Salah and Mane, but we need to check on their fitness, so be careful. Don't just do it blindly without checking the press conferences, which will be Friday. I think Hazard is a form player. He's at home to Man United. He takes the penalties. I do think Chelsea will get a positive result in that game, but we've got to watch for Mourinho's tactics. We know he can be quite clever in the way that he'll pack the defence and try and play for perhaps a 0-0 draw. But the standout one is pretty clear, isn't it? It's Aguero. Like I said, with Dembele and Eriksen being back as a Kane owner, I may look at that a little bit and think that through. Is it worth considering? my gut feel without actually thinking about it properly is probably it's not, and Aguero is probably the right play, but I'd need to gather all the information from the press conferences first. But as it stands, I think Aguero looks pretty nailed on. So hope that is useful and valuable. Thank you all for tuning in. Shout out to my guys on the FPL Masterclass. A couple of new subscribers this week, so welcome and thanks for supporting me on that. There's a video that I put up actually over the international break that talks a bit more about people like Matt Doherty, Lacazette, some of the other form players in a bit more depth. So if that's your bag, I'll stick the link up at the bottom. But again, thank you all for your support, and go and have a great game week, and don't do any mad Harry Kane moves. Cheers everyone.